Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I'm back with my plans and pans. Well, as you may know, I got arrested this week. It was in a demonstration in favor of abortion rights. A group of us sat down on the street in front of the Supreme Court, and we were arrested for blocking the traffic. You know, I've been arrested before, one of the last times with John Lewis. This was on an immigration issue. And John has always said that when you have something that's a law that's wrong, you have to try and right it. And he said also that it was good to get into trouble, good trouble. So 35 of us were arrested, 17 members of Congress were arrested. Civil disobedience, of course, is what we call it, to bring attention to the issue, an issue which is supported by the vast majority of Americans, that is, to have access to abortion, to have the freedom to control one's own body. That very same day, I participated in a hearing of a committee I'm on that does oversight, where a number of doctors were present talking about the utter chaos that is taking place around the country now with all these different state laws where doctors are totally unclear about whether they can even provide emergency care. How much bleeding is really too much bleeding? Or is the state going to go ahead and sue you for trying to take care of a patient? There's a lot of fear, not only among people who want to have abortions, who want to travel to another state, but also among doctors who would like to be able to take care of their patients. So both the hearing and the civil disobedience, I think, are very, very important, and I think you will definitely be seeing more. But what also this did is open the door to an understanding that we all have to have, that this is just the beginning. Taking away the right to bodily autonomy and control is just the beginning. And that the Congress needs to pass legislation that will put into law, not just rely on the Supreme Court, to protect our rights. So let me give you examples of some of the things that we did. You know, I told you a couple of weeks ago, we passed again for the second time the Women's Health Protection Act in the House of Representatives. We had enough votes to do that, to make sure we put into law, and hopefully the Senate will as well, the right to have an abortion. But just this week, we also passed the Right to Contraception Act. Now, you may think, as I did when I spoke on the floor of the House, are you kidding me? Are we going to have to say that it is a good idea to have the right to have contraception, birth control? Especially, I said, those people who are against abortion, this is the option that people have. You can have birth control. So we passed that legislation, and we only had 8 Republicans who actually voted with us. I find it completely shocking. The other thing we did the week before was to say that people can travel from one state to another in these United States of America for reasons that they choose, including to go to a place where abortion is legal. So we passed that legislation, this right to travel legislation. That was important. Just this last week, we passed the Marriage Equality Act, a bill that does really what the Supreme Court had done in 2015 and say that same-sex marriage is legal. But because we don't trust what the current Supreme Court would do, we wanted to pass it into law. What the bill also did was to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, which until now had been overturned by the Supreme Court, but we, again, want to make sure. So that is now repealed as far as the House of Representatives is concerned. But, we already heard that Clarence Thomas talking about that we should go further than overturning Roe v. Wade, but we should reconsider same-sex marriage. And even though 70% of Americans now support same-sex marriage, when we passed it in the House, we had only a handful of votes from the Republicans. So we're moving ahead and trying to put these things to be enshrined into the law, which ultimately trumps what the Supreme Court might rule. On gun violence, we finally were able to pass a package of important bills, the first time in 3 decades, to be able to make our community safer. The Safer Communities Act was passed. It is good, but we need to do more. And you know what that more is as the first priority, and that is to ban assault weapons. So this last week, the House Judiciary Committee did get that bill out of committee. It was a long debate because there was a lot of, on the Republican side of the aisle, a lot of objection to it. But it did pass, and we are looking forward this coming week to have a vote in the House to pass an assault weapons ban. So we are on the move, trying to put these things into law, and just want to point out all of these issues will be on the ballot. And people who care about these fundamental rights, to safe communities, to the LGBTQ plus community, on abortion rights, on the right to travel, all of these issues are on the ballot right now. People need to examine the policies of people that they vote for. On the environment, just this year, 90 communities in the United States reached record high temperatures. And we've certainly seen that all over the world, where temperatures in Europe were at unprecedented heights, 104, 105 degrees. They had never seen anything like it. The reason, of course, is climate change. And so what the Biden administration did was talk about an executive actions that he wants to do. And they include protecting communities that right now are facing extraordinary heat, to create good-paying green jobs, and lower the cost for consumers of various products, and to boost the domestic offshore wind industry. A number of members of Congress, including me, sent a letter to the president encouraging him to consider creating a climate emergency. And he said that he would consider that. What that does is unlock a large number of additional federal policies to be able to address the climate crisis. So we are certainly hoping that will take place soon. I don't know if you were able to see it, but I was absolutely riveted to the January 6th hearing of the committee that is examining exactly what happened during the hours where Donald Trump spoke first at the ellipse and then finally at the end of the time made an announcement saying that people should go home. The invaders should go home. Oh, they may also remember that he told them that he loved them and that they were very, very special people. Trump wanted to go right to the Capitol himself. There was a struggle that was held, and finally he was made to go back to the White House, where he spent most of the time in the dining room next to the Oval Office, watching Fox News, and doing things like making calls to senators. Because remember, this was the day that the certification of Joe Biden as President of the United States had to take place. There's an actual vote to do that. Still, on that very day, while he was watching the violence of this insurrection, he was calling senators, asking them to make sure that the vote was no, that they wouldn't be certified. And of course, you know, when the vote finally was held, we saw House members, including Kevin McCarthy, actually voted not to certify. But in the meantime, as the insurrection was going on, the pleading that was going on with him, his family, his staff, his advisors, other friends, including people on Fox News, calling him to say, put an end to this, knowing full well that the insurrectionists were doing it because they believed that Donald Trump had instructed them to do it. During all this, Vice President Pence and other members of Congress were fleeing. We saw kind of almost a funny Josh Hawley, Senator Hawley, at first, who tried to rile up the crowd and then dashing for his life to get away. But Donald Trump, his comment about the vice president, about Pence, is that Pence let me down. And by the way, he thought he would be fine going to the Capitol because he said, despite knowing that there were deadly arms in the crowd, munitions, he said, but they're not going to hurt me. Fortunately, he was kept out of sight. But even at the very end, the next day, when he made his speech, he said he just didn't feel comfortable saying that he had lost the election, that Biden was the president, and to this day, he really doesn't. But stay tuned. There's more. We had thought maybe this was going to be the last episode. It is not. The committee has said that they will continue to work over the August recess and that they will reconvene in September. There is more information, they said, that is coming out every single day. One thing I feel really good about is that in an overwhelming bipartisan vote, my bill that we call the American Data Privacy and Protection Act, first time in history, we were able to get out of the full Energy and Commerce Committee a bill that would give consumers confidence online that their data was protected, that their children were protected online. And so this legislation on day one is going to do so many things. On day one, companies can only collect the absolute minimum necessary of data that they need to complete a particular transaction. So anyone that would ask for your phone number or your social security number or any other personal data, or health data, you would not have to give it. So now it goes to the full House of Representatives. Let me tell you some of the other things that it do. On day one, consumers will have the right to access, correct, delete, and transfer your data. Consumers can opt out of data sharing agreements that are always asked by these companies. Consumers won't be forced into take it or leave it kinds of terms, and be forced to pay for privacy to get what they want. You won't be charged more for these privacy protections. There's a lot of protection for children. For one thing, we raise the age of children that we protect to age 17. So they can't target advertising directly to these children, and a lot of other good things that make you not have to worry as a parent to have your children online. None of the data would be shared with third parties, etc. And we also build in an ability to enforce the law, to be able to not only have the attorneys general and the states, but also there is a private right of action that will kick in full blast in 2 years. So this is a major civil rights issue as well. There has been discrimination online. This legislation will stop any kind of discrimination based on just about everything you can think of, race and sex and whatever. It's prohibited, any discrimination. So I'm really proud for this almost fully bipartisan legislation. We worked hard to get all the consumer groups and the companies and the business community and the experts and the advocates to agree on this legislation. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to move it along to the end point when the president signs it into law. I wanted to talk a little bit about constituent service. You know, I have offices in Chicago and in Glenview. These are full-time offices that are staffed, and we're very proud in the constituent service that we do. And just wanted to remind you, if you have issues, for example, with veterans benefits or health care or immigration or passports or visas or Social Security, just as examples, don't make yourself crazy. We can help. And just wanted to tell you that right now we're going to have on my website at shikowski.house.gov, there will be casework forms you can fill out. Yes, we do have staff at the office, but you might want to fill that out, so we'll have details when we get back to you. So take a look at that, because we really want to be helpful. That's part of my job, and that's why I hire the best constituent advocates to be on your side. Finally, I do want to talk about COVID. So this week we saw both President Biden and Governor J.B. Pritzker test positive for COVID-19. Both, fortunately, had very mild symptoms and had been fully vaccinated and double boosted. So, they did all that they could. But we know that Cook County remains at the high COVID-19 levels. So these subvariants of the highly contagious Omicron called BA4 and BA5 are making up 90% right now in the United States of what is making people sick from from COVID. And the federal government is doing everything that it can't, and has established a website that could provide an all-purpose tool that will provide information on how to obtain masks and treatments and vaccines and testing. So if you want to go to www.covid.gov and you have questions about this, please go. But you know, these are variants that seem to be more resistant to even those who have been fully vaccinated and boosted. So once again, please be careful. Take care of yourself. And, you know, I'm going to, at the end of this week, we begin the August recess. The actual work at the House of Representatives will be down for the month. The United States Senate will be in for the first week in August. I am going to take the opportunity to be with family and do some traveling, but most of the time I'll be around, and when I can, I will certainly keep you informed with pans and plans. See you soon. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.